What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. We got another absolutely just great matchup here in Week 4 as the loaded Week 4 slate continues. Another top 25 matchup here. We're going back to the Pac-12, and we got the UCLA Bruins going on the road in Salt Lake City, Utah, to take on the Utah Utes. It's the top 22 showdown in the Pac-12, and it should be a fun one to watch there from Rice-Eccels Stadium. But before we dive into this preview prediction, gotta take care of some business. Thank you guys so much for the support the channel has seen as of late. If you want to continue to show your support for the channel, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when videos get uploaded. But there are more ways than that to help me support my channel. You guys are doing one of them right now by watching the video, and you guys can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you guys are willing and or able to do to help me support this channel. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it, right? We got the UCLA Bruins. We got the Utah Utes. Should be a fun one here in Salt Lake City. UCLA, they've had some trouble, and while a lot of times it hasn't been the prettiest of performances, especially in that Week 1 game against Coastal Carolina, Dante Moore has really taken over this team, and this is the UCLA Bruins team that has come along. Meanwhile, for the Utah Utes, they are still without quarterback Cam Rising, but that could change this week, and that'd be a huge boost to a Utah team that, while again they've had their struggles, have looked mighty impressive so far. So let's go ahead and dive on in to the statistics that both of these teams have put up so far this season. We are going to start with the UCLA Bruins, as they are the visiting team here in this game. And UCLA, quite honestly, guys, has definitely put up the more impressive offensive resume when you compare these two teams. And we're going to talk about why here. But 40 points per game, 527 yards per game there as well. It starts out with this rushing attack for the UCLA Bruins. Now it absolutely popped off. So the number, or I should say, it absolutely popped off last week against an FCS opponent in North Carolina Central. So the number might be a little bit inflated, but regardless, this is an offense that starts out with the run, and former Ball State transfer Carson Steele has performed really, really well. 243 yards, 8.1 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. You got TJ Harden that is back there as well. Anthony Adkins has gotten a lot of carries there as well. And then a little bit down the ways as well, Colson Yankoff has had some very nice touches there. All of those guys that I just mentioned averaging at least 8 yards per carry. So this is a UCLA offense that, of course, starts with the run, but has been very effective when it's run the ball. But Dante Moore has really taken over this team here. 7 touchdowns, 1 pick, 615 yards, 62% completion percentage. The Dante Moore hasn't really shown the rushing ability, but he's played very, very well and really has taken over this team in a good leadership role as a true freshman. Nonetheless, again, it's an offense that does start with the run, does have some turnover problems. Now, Dante Moore's only thrown 1 pick. You do have Ethan Garbers that's come in there and thrown 2 picks. Colin Schlee has thrown 1 pick with a couple fumbles in there as well. So that turnover number probably a little bit inflated, but they still have had some problems with turning the football over. Otherwise, they're a really good third down team, and the offense is really good. When you move over to the defensive side of the ball for the UCLA Bruins, well, this rush defense has been superb so far this year. Only 70 yards per game allowed on the ground. It's a defense that's getting pressure to the quarterback. They forced 11 sacks so far this season. They're forcing turnovers. They have 8 turnovers so far on the season. The third down defense maybe could improve a little bit, but they're keeping teams off the scoreboard. They're keeping teams from driving down the field, and it's a UCLA defense that, to the surprise of maybe some people, not everyone, but maybe to some people, is very, very physical, much like what this Utah team sees, or I guess kind of much like the style that Utah plays, which, speaking of the Utes, we'll talk about their physical defense in a minute. Let's talk about their offense here. Yes, it has been a little bit slow without Cam Rising, but Nate Johnson has come in, and hey, in limited reps, he's played pretty darn well. He's 22 of 32 on the season for 281 yards, a lone touchdown, but a 68% completion percentage. Bryson Barnes has come in and played here and there as well. He has 230 yards, my apologies, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Only a 48% completion percentage, though not as high as a yard per pass or a yard per completion average. Bryson Barnes averaging 6.2, Nate Johnson averaging 8.8. But again, much like the UCLA team, it starts out with the run. Jaquindon Jackson has played really, really well so far, and then Nate Johnson's really been able to has really shown the rushing ability there as well. You do have a big loss as Micah Bernard is probably going to be out for the foreseeable future. So that's a huge loss. Offensively, again, the running back there was a great depth piece and a great pass catcher out of the backfield. But you got some other good pass catchers on this team, right? Money Parks has played really, really well so far this year. Only 8 catches, but 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. The only 2 passing touchdowns that Utah has on the year. Again, the offense has been a little slow to get going, but there is talks that Cam Rising could be available and could be coming back for this game against UCLA, and we'll talk more about that later. But I mentioned UCLA and their physical defense and their physical play. Oh boy, you know that is what the Utah Utes bring every single year. That is just the way that Kyle Whittingham plays the game of football. They've only allowed 10 points per game, less yards just by a little bit than what UCLA is averaging. They still defend the run really, really well. 65 rush yards per game is all that Utah is allowing, and that's all credit to the defensive front. They're generating pressure. They have 7 sacks. They're forcing turnovers, and they're really, really good on third down, only allowing opponents to get 20% of their third down, I believe. Now, I'm not quite sure if this number is correct. You guys can fact check me in the comments, but I think their opponents are only 7 of 35 on third down, which again does equate to that 20% number. What I'm trying to say is Utah's defense has been very, very physical, very, very good, and they're going to continue that here in this game, which leads me into my what to watch for keys to the game, kind of just some things I think you should keep an eye on, or maybe some things that both teams can do in order to pull out the win, or I guess things to watch for while you're watching this game. Hopefully you're able to follow that. I know I ramble on quite a bit, but let's talk about the UCLA Bruins first. They are the road team, ranked 22nd in the nation. Dante Moore needs to be smart. This is a Utah defense that is not only physical, but it plays very, very smart football. It's able to read the quarterback's eyes. Utah's already been able to force 4 interceptions so far this season, 10 pass breakups as well as, again, that 7 sack number. So they're really able to read the quarterback. They're really able to generate some good pressure. Dante Moore's going to need to be smart. Maybe he's going to have to create outside of the pocket a couple times in this game and take some shots down the field to really test out this Utah secondary, but he can't turn the football over. That's the big key thing there for the UCLA Bruins in this game. Continue to stop the run and prepare for the possibility of a Rising sighting, right? Cam Rising, who knows if he's going to be able and healthy and ready to go here in this game. Again, I've talked about that a lot. It's also a key for Utah, really beating the nail into the coffin there, or kind of whatever the saying goes. But you have to continue to stop the run. It's a Utah team, much like UCLA, that relies on the rushing ability of a lot of the running backs and even the quarterback, Nate Johnson, if he happens to see playing time here in this game. But you have to prepare for the possibility of Cam Rising, because if he plays, you know that pass game is going to get a huge boost, which, again, we'll talk about more here in a little bit. But UCLA, as I talked about on that last slide, is physical enough to hang around with this Utah team. And to some, UCLA may be surprisingly physical this year. Again, it hasn't been pretty all the time, but the physical play of this UCLA defense is getting things done. Yes, the offense has put up some really good numbers, but the defense has been impressive so far about the UCLA Bruins this year. They're in for a nice test, though, because this is the Utah team that will punch back, and it will punch back harder. Again, Cam Rising could return, which, as I've mentioned, is a huge boost to this passing game. Of course, Utah is going to set the tone with the ground game. More on that later there as well. But with Cam Rising coming back, I mean, that just opens up the pass game, and it opens things up for these wide receivers. Again, there are some really good wide receivers in this room. Money Parks there, it is still there, right? Matthews, McLean, Vele, Thomas Yasmin is a really, really good tight end there as well. So, I mean, all in all, when you take a look, if Cam Rising comes back, this is an offense that's going to get a huge boost in the passing game, but the offense doesn't turn the football over. That is what has been impressive about Utah so far, is even though Cam Rising is out, and even though some of these younger guys are stepping up and making some plays, the offense is still holding on to the football. It's still moving the football down the field, and UCLA has had trouble with turnovers, and it could cost them here, especially against the Utah defense that is aggressive, that is smart, and that is physical. Utah will own the clock, though, in this game. UCLA, when they run the ball, They run it well, but they don't control the clock. This is the Chip Kelly team. They move the ball down the field. They don't really control the clock. Utah does. And that leads me into my prediction here. Utah is the 4.5-point favorite. FPI likes them there as well. It's a 3:30 game on Fox, and while I think it's going to be a very good, very competitive game, I think especially if you don't see Cam Rising play in this game, it's going to come down to who owns time of possession battle and probably which defense can be more physical as well. And I give both of the edges there to the Utah Utes. I think UCLA is good enough to cover here, and I think UCLA is going to make this game very, very close, very, very competitive. But Utah will own the clock. They will end up getting the extra possession, maybe force the extra turnover with that defense to help them pull away with the win in this game. Let me know your thoughts on this game in the comment section down below. And hey, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.